So, you want to create realistic environments in Unreal Engine 4. Now, what I notice a lot of people doing when they make levels, if you look at just the fodder that hits Game Jolt a lot of the time, they think that just the pure rendering and lighting engine that Unreal Engine comes with will make whatever design they want to make, whatever level design they put together, look good. And that's not really the case. I'm no expert, and my levels don't necessarily look all great, but I have some ways that I've been able to improve them that I want to share with everyone, little tricks to make them look better, and have more depth and realism. So you can see with this room, the lighting in some areas looks good, you've got good reflections and everything, but you notice there's some weird shadows, there's it's overly bright in some areas. Some of the stuff doesn't make sense, and it's very overly spaced. So I want to go over the 3 ways that I would fix a room like this and turn it into something more like this. Obviously, there's some issues, mostly seam issues is what I seem to run into, and I can't really figure out how to fix those with the starter content, like walls and stuff. That's why I don't use them usually. But this was just really quickly put together, so anyone could really put this together with this advice. So the first thing that you'll see the difference is this is a much smaller room. If you look at where the walls are much closer in, and that is the first thing, spacing. A lot of people space out their things like here. They space everything out. No one would practically be watching something over here and have this much space, and try and watch the TV and have this much space between there. But a lot of people have this spacing issue. So don't be afraid to make things a lot closer. The other thing besides spacing and placement is prop amount. The amount of props that you have, I feel like, is really, they only seem to think the bare minimum. A lot of early developers think the bare minimum is needed. And sometimes that is true if you're trying to optimize certain things. There's not a whole lot here. But even with this closed in, you can see there's more things. There's a shelf. You don't even have to put anything on the shelf. It just shows that there's something here. You can get creative with it. This is actually a potted plant I shrunk down and put it in this empty vase. And now you have that. You have a painting up by here, and you have the plant a little bit bigger, and even though it's still a little awkwardly spaced here, it looks a lot better. You have a lot more stuff on here, and on here you have a TV stand along with your coffee table. You have the TV's a bit bigger. It's not exactly centered, but that's fine. You have another lamp over here. You have things like this, little attention to detail, lights and sockets, and things like that. So don't be afraid to put a lot of stuff in a room. People like to hold on to things. People do like to hold on to possessions, even if it's like you're making a science lab. Scientists like keeping all of their test tubes in order. They don't only use the test tube that they're experimenting on. Things like that should be taken into consideration. And the last thing is lighting and particles. So over here, we have the light is extremely bright. There's one light source, and there's not really a whole lot to make this interesting. It's really bright, a little overexposed in areas like that that the light is close to, and then really kind of shadowy in over here. So the thing I would say is use multiple light sources almost always. I actually have a lot of light sources for this one. We have the main ceiling light, which is casting light up around where the light source is. Then we have this light, which is basically supposed to be the same as the ceiling light, but it's set up slightly differently, so you can actually have the light spread out more. I have these spotlights coming out either end. Same with over here, and they're a slightly darker shade than these two. And then finally, coming in through here, I have a spotlight that is also a different color to give the idea that the sun is coming in. And then the same here, you can see a little bit of light shining on here on this area, you can see light shining from the plant. The plant is now casting a shadow. That is a big part of it, of course, is the lighting from multiple sources, realistic sources. Lastly, let me just touch on particles. They are also kind of related to lighting. They add visual interest, but they add kind of this realism. Right here, this is just stock, comes with starter content. This is ambient dust. You can click on it and you can see all of the dust particles, and then you go into it and you can see there's this dust floating in and out, and it really gives the sense that this place is real. Now almost every inch has something to look at, whether or not it's something intriguing or just some dust. It fills that space and makes it seem more real. So let's go about actually changing a poorly designed space into a slightly more realistic one, using those three things. So yeah, let's go. Okay, so here we are. Maybe a bit grim. There's a few lighting issues here and there that you could tweak, but it definitely looks a lot better than it did before. This one I spent a bit more time on fixing those things, but I wanted to show you just how those sort of techniques could help make it look better. Maybe there's some things that could be added or tweaked or fixed, but essentially, I think it looks a lot better. Yeah, so that is my 3 tips for creating a more realistic environment. Close spacing and placement, having things very close together, maybe closer than you would think automatically. Realistic placement, which you can look at reference images for, making sure you use a lot of placement, you place a lot of items, the variety of items you use, and using particles to add detail and visual interest to what you're looking at. I hope you were helped by this in some way. I hope you can add these techniques to your video game development. Yeah, I will. See you next time.